Hello and welcome to Novitec University's Vertical Application Webinar Series. I'm Larry Buthumer. Today we're focusing on an application that we have termed in-vehicle communication. The goal here is to provide some basic information about the application, some of its key components, and some of the expected benefits for businesses of all kinds. Just a bit about Novitec. As the slide mentions, our mission is to help customers deploy IoT, or Internet of Things, solutions in many ways. For some customers, this might involve providing flexible financial payment options. For others, providing world-class pre- and post-technical sales assistance and support. And for some, even providing some logistical services, such as kitting and installation services, all to help ease the burden of deployment. We obviously do this to make money, but we also do it to fulfill a vision, and that's to help customers figure out the complex world of IoT and how to use it to better their business. As mentioned, today we're talking about in-vehicle communication. I think most people understand the concept. Using a cellular connection allows you to both gather information from the car itself and the driver behavior, and also allows you to provide an internet connection for the driver and for its passengers. And I think if any of us have ever gone up to the cottage with kids, you know how valuable this can be. Some of the information that might be gathered on board could include things like the usage, how often a vehicle is driven and where it's driven, the speed, mainly how fast it's going, but also is it going too fast into turns, things like that. And finally, many insurance companies are using it for things like driver behavior. But it can also be used for monitoring things on board the device. And this is probably not applicable to most passenger vehicles. But if you're running an industrial or commercial vehicle, you might want to know things like the temperature of the fridges, are certain doors being opened, are your employees safe, have they been attacked? These are all things that can actually be gathered from the modem on board the vehicle. Obviously, it's great to know all these things, but it's also great to know where a vehicle is, and that's why most of these solutions involve some kind of GPS reporting or recording. You can connect things to the modem via a few different ways. In some cases, a cable is run right directly to the modem, whether it be an Ethernet cable, a serial, or a USB. In other cases, a short-haul wireless technology like Bluetooth might be used. Or in the event of trying to provide connectivity for many people, like on a transit bus or a train, Wi-Fi is often used as well. There are a lot of benefits that can be drawn, and it often depends on who's using the solution, but let's try to generalize them a little bit. The first thing is, if you know how and where your vehicle is, if you know how it's being driven, this tends to drive down the operation costs, as drivers tend to drive a little slower, and they tend to drive a little more cautiously. So this will lower things like fuel and maintenance cost, but also will create a longer life for the vehicle, which will reduce your CapEx in the long run. The next thing is, depending on whether it's your employee or even some passengers on board, it's really important to know the safety of what's going on. And these solutions allow that to be increased, as you'll know actually what's going on and be able to send different authorities there in case of an emergency. By knowing where the vehicles are, you can actually dispatch the correct one. This might not sound important to some people, but you may think you know where your driver is, but if they're off getting a coffee, you might dispatch them. That drive might take an extra 20 minutes longer than it should because they weren't where they should have been. And in this case, it'll help to make you more effective and more productive. It will also help you to reduce some of the clerical work as well. And let's face it, some of us have some issues with chicken scratch, at least if you ask my wife, I do. So by having things more automated, it prevents the information from being misread. The last thing is, billing is boring for most of us. We want to do what we want, what we're trained to do. So the idea of filling out paperwork really is boring for me, and I'm sure it's boring for a lot of people. So by having these solutions automate some of this clerical work, you will find the orders get in faster, and this is going to help to help to improve your business's cash flow. As I mentioned, the reason why you might want the solution definitely varies depending on what you do for a living. If you're a first responder, I think most of us would understand that this can often make the difference between life and death. Knowing where the officer is, allowing the officer to get information that they need out in the field, and allowing them to notify their colleagues that they're in trouble makes a lot of sense to most people. The same goes for utility fleets. They may require information from the field that they simply don't have time to drive back to the office to get, whether it be blueprints or anything else. When it comes to other government agencies such as parks, bylaw, wastewater, The goal here is to keep them out in the field, not to have them come back when they don't, just to gather information. So by giving them the information they need, they'll be able to be much more productive. When it comes to private companies, the goal here is obviously to save money. And I think a lot of people understand how a transportation company could save money if their vehicle is being used in a more responsible way. But at the same token, a lot of fleets, such as taxis, are under attack from companies like Uber. So providing services on board, such as Wi-Fi, can often allow them to differentiate themselves versus a potentially lower cost competitor. Well, that's all I have for you today. Hope you enjoyed this webinar and look forward to having you coming back for future ones. Thanks.